So welcome to Spotcast. This is episode 31. My name is Tim Mitchell, and I am in Toronto, Ontario, and I'm joined once again by Jonathan Kuline in Mississauga, Ontario.
Wakanda forever!
We also have Jaime Lopez Jr. in Seattle, Washington.
How's it going?
Good. By the way, just a sidebar here. The Pod World thing that they had in Seattle?
Yeah, PodCon.
Probably should have gone. Oh well,
next year.
They're represented. Huh?
Next year.
Next year, yeah. No, there were some interesting people there. Anyway, yeah, next year.
Is it always in Seattle?
Don't know. I've never even heard of it until I saw it on the wires a couple of weeks ago. And then I noticed some of the people I follow on Twitter were there. One guy got his iPad signed by one of the podcast hosts on the back, not on the front.
It's probably for the best.
Forever smudge on the front.
Yeah, exactly.
Mental note: if I get famous enough, sign the front of people's iPads.
Yeah. And follow Mark Mark Hamill, right?
That's right.
I was going to say Mark Lucas. What the hell was I thinking? Holy cow!
What?
Ooh, Luke, I am your father. Yes. So here we are. So do we have any fact check? Oh, nobody's done any fact check on last week's show. It was so good.
Oh, hang on. I think I might have some. Hang on.
Wait.
I may not have pasted it in. Let me see. I think I've got a file here.
It's pretty heavy fact check.
You guys can vent for a second there, and I'll find it.
Drop it in.
So the Wakanda Forever thing has a new twist to it now. I don't know if you all have seen the new trailers for What Men Want, where this lady drinks some sort of magic tea, I think, that gives her the ability to read the minds and hear what men are thinking. Very similar to Mel Gibson's What Women Want. And I'm not even sure if it's like a reboot or sequel. We can discuss that, movie universe at a later time.
It's good that they've expanded that universe, yeah.
Tangentially sci-fi and fantasy. But in the trailer that I saw, her young son wears like her panties on his head and says Wakanda forever. It's burned into my brain now.
Nice.
Okay, so our one fact check 2348. We mentioned Hellboy. We were talking about Hellboy, and we couldn't remember the name of the merman from Hellboy. His name is Abe Sapien. There, I looked
Abe
Sapien. That is all I have for our fact check. It was a very efficient episode last time.
Wow, amazing.
Yeah,
hard to believe.
No, we're pros. It's good. We don't need no PodCon. We're good.
We don't need no PodCon. All right. Well, so should we jump into the Spokies, or do you want to save that for after the headlines?
Well, why don't we do our headlines, and then we'll do our Spokies, and then we'll get to our. So we got a double main event to just keep our listeners tuned in here. We got a double main event tonight. Not only are we going to talk about the first episode of season 2 of Star Trek Discovery, which is why we've all gathered here, but we also are going to reveal the winners of the Second Annual Spokie Awards.
Ooh, double header. Yes. All right. Okay. So lead into, I guess Jaime's first up on the headlines.
Yeah, keeping it brisk. So HBO has revealed the release date for the final season of Game of Thrones. TLDR, it's April 14th, so mark that on your calendars. And the trailer is kind of cool and gloomy, showing some of the main Starks in the crypts, I guess, of Winterfell.
But are they really Starks? Are they?
I mean, spoilers, I guess, but yes-ish. But yeah, looking forward to seeing that one.
Yeah, I kind of get the impression that was made for TV kind of thing, because I can't imagine they're down in the Stark crypt, of course, right? And they're all they see themselves or whatever. But,
it plays like a dream sequence. It's either done as a commercial or it's done as part of a dream. It doesn't seem like something that's actually happening,
like a triple hysteria or something. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
One of those will be, and it was all just a dream.
To be fair, if it gets any colder here, then I might start having those kind of delusions too. So maybe it's winter has just truly come to Winterfell, but
that's true.
Yeah.
Oh, Torontofell, yeah.
Torontofell, yeah.
All right. Okay. What's next?
Continuing on the theme of trailers, we have a trailer for Spider-Man Far From Home. That would be the sequel to Spider-Man Homecoming. That looks like it releases on July 5th. It shows Spider-Man looking good and healthy and going to the UK.
Not disintegrated at all, kind of thing?
Yeah, not ashy, so it seems well hydrated. It looks like a fun one. I'd say go see the trailer. I definitely want to go see the movie. And the big bad villain is ostensibly Mysterio, played by Jake Gyllenhaal or Gyllenhaal. I forget how his name's pronounced.
Yeah, I think it's Gyllenhaal.
Oh, he's the bad guy in that?
Well, he in the trailer he comes off like he might be pretending to be the good guy.
Yeah,
but
he wears the dome helmet thing.
Yeah, right? yeah. Classic Spider-Man villain, and one that hasn't been done in any of the films so far. So very cool to see that brought to life.
Cool.
Yeah,
I thought I recognized him.
So the debate on this one is, where in time does this movie fit with the events of the latest Avengers film? And I believe it was Amy Pascal from Sony who said it takes place before and during the events of Avengers. So it sounds like there's going to be some timey-wimey stuff going on in the new Avengers movie to sort of bring this back into some sort of time loop. I'm thinking that when Peter is on the bus in Avengers, that's where they're going.
Back? They're going or coming back?
No, I think they're going. I think they were on their way to that trip. So I think when time resets itself and all is right at the end of the new Avengers movie, he's on that bus trip because he's going on a trip with his friends to Europe, which is what the trailer shows.
Time resets itself? I missed something there.
Well, I think they're not going to leave Spider-Man dead. We can safely conclude that. They're not going to leave all these characters demised. That would be bad for business. So the question is, how do they bring them all back? And maybe...
How do they bring them all back after, you mean, the movie we haven't seen yet that's coming out this summer?
Exactly.
Okay.
So in that case, maybe they're going to do some timey-wimey stuff where time goes back to where it left off, or none of that stuff actually happened. That way they wouldn't have anybody be dead, right?
Right. Oh, I see. Okay. Weird. Okay. All right. So sidebar, though, on that same thing. So I finally did get around to watching Ant-Man and Wasp. And I think I reached out to you and asked you, because, again, I got confused about the timeline, because there's a couple of characters at the end of that movie that vaporize, or whatever we're calling this, turning to
Snappening?
ash.
The Snappening?
The Snappening? Yeah, Snappening. Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah. The Snapocalypse? Snapocalypse. Yeah, so, and you said that the Ant-Man and Wasp takes place at the end of, or during, like, so what I think one of my confusion was when was it released? Was it released before Avengers or after?
It was released after. So there was some debate as to sort of where it fit. So the movie happens concurrent with what's happening, I guess, or prior to the events of Avengers Infinity War, and the PS sequence on that film happens clearly at the end of that film because, as you mentioned, 3 of the characters turn to dust, and Ant-Man is stranded.
What would have happened if they had released Ant-Man and Wasp before the Avengers Infinity War came out, and at the end of the movie they still had those 2 characters sort of disappear in the Snappening? Wouldn't that be kind of like, would people kind of going, what had just happened there?
Well, I guess it would have been a spoiler.
Would it have been a spoiler? Would people have figured that out?
Probably.
Oh, is it something that you might have read in a comic book at some point in the...
It is something you probably would have read in a comic that came out 25 years ago.
25 years ago. I knew it was a while ago.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay. Yeah. Let's move on to the next Jaime Lopez headline.
Yeah, I sure hope you like collecting streaming services, because there's a new one coming out from NBCUniversal. And very similar to many, there will be paid versions. In this case, there will also be an ad-supported version that will be free for NBC TV subscribers in the U.S. I'm not even sure what that means. I don't think I subscribe to NBC TV. That sounds like a different channel than NBC. So I'm a little confused on this, but they're going to have their own content as well. It's a little unclear because of the 30% stake in Hulu that NBCUniversal has. And we know that Disney has a big chunk of that, especially after the Fox acquisition. So I expect there to be a whole lot more fragmentation in this space before we start seeing things consolidate.
Yeah, it's interesting what you say about collecting streaming service, because I'm just starting to do the math now. If you have to have CBS, and you have to have Netflix, and you have to have Hulu, and you have to have NBCUniversal, and you have to have, what am I missing?
Disney Plus.
Right. Aren't you paying way more than you would have paid for cable already?
Yeah, but so much better content. Oh, and there's 5 more services launching next year. Don't forget it was the Disney, DC one, right? The Warner Brothers DC one that they've got out there too. And
sure,
anybody thinks they can monetize. Again, the problem is they're not making as much money on their commercial television. They got to try and corner the market on you. So
right. And I suppose they can collect their own Nielsen ratings by basically seeing how many people are paying them, I guess, right?
Yeah.
And they'll be able to collect their own stats, and there goes our privacy once again.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Well, all right. Are we done with this particular one?
So just to recap, are there any NBC sci-fi shows that we're watching? Doesn't NBC own Sci-Fi? The Sci-Fi network in the States?
Ooh, good question. I'm not sure.
But you're asking, are we watching any NBC shows?
Yeah, The Good Place is on there. That's ostensibly a sci-fi show. But yeah, I'm just wondering if they start pulling the material off of Netflix, as Disney is clearly trying to do.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny, all of a sudden, certain days, like, is Good Places on Monday or Tuesday?
It's on Thursday evenings.
Thursday's like, I can't do anything but watch TV on Thursday.
I know.
There's so many shows that
Since
come
they
out
added it's because Discovery's on there, Orville's on there, now Good Place is on there, and there's a few other...
Sunday and Tuesday are having the same problem for me, too.
Yeah.
Because, I actually did watch Supergirl this weekend, I have to say.
Yeah, I watched The Flash, but it is, as a matter of fact, I just looked up. Sci-Fi is owned by NBCUniversal, subsidiary of Comcast. So there you go. So those of you who are interested in sci-fi content, that will be a pay platform for them.
Yeah.
Assuming you watch Krypton. I don't know. What else does Sci-Fi have nowadays? There's no more Galactica. What do they show?
Which one?
Sci-Fi. It's the Sci-Fi channel in the States.
Oh, Sci-Fi channel. Oh, I don't know.
Again, I know that they show the Krypton show, which I have not watched at all.
Yeah, I watched a bit of that last year. I think they produce a lot of things that we see here on Showcase and on Bravo and stuff, right?
Yeah,
so.
I think you're right.
A lot of original movies like Sharktopus versus Zebra Squid or something. There's like a million of them that I see on the Sci-Fi channel.
Well, they did Killjoys. That was on here. They do Happy, Krypton.
Oh, Happy's good.
Deadly Class just started. Looking forward to the return of Happy at some point. I don't see a lot of other stuff on here. Van Helsing, Winona Earp, The Magicians.
Right.
So, yeah, there's a few shows out there that people will know.
Yeah, I just watched the first class of Deadly Class there. So let's get back to Supergirl for a minute, because I'm just falling into this episode and I probably won't watch it again. But so this badass woman that's running the, what's it called, DEA or whatever?
DEO.
The Drug Enforcement Office.
Alien drugs, yes, space drugs.
Space drugs. Yeah, so she's like, what a piece of work, eh? Like, the one trying to hypnotize everybody into telling who Supergirl is, and that's
she's basically Amanda Waller, if you remember her from Suicide Squad. It's the same kind of character.
Right, yeah, exactly.
Tough as nails, willing to push the line, but technically not a villain. This is on the side of the good guys, but sort of antagonizing them because of the way that they're very, very mission focused.
Right. Yeah, you're either with us or against us, right? Mm-hmm. Which is the main premise that I dislike about that show. Anyway, let's move on to Jonathan's headlines here.
Okay, I got a good one. So we got news last week that we're going to see a revival of the original Ghostbusters. Jason Reitman, son of Ivan, noted Canadian director, is going to revive his father's legacy piece and bring us back a movie that omits the most recent reboot of Ghostbusters and sort of continues the legacy after Ghostbusters Part 1 and Part 2. And as a matter of fact, they has even shown us a little teaser trailer already, which is an interesting development. So, cool news. If you're a fan of that Ghostbusters iteration, obviously we're missing one of the Ghostbusters passed away, Harold Ramis. So we're down to 3, and there hasn't been any word on the participation of Dan Aykroyd, Bill Murray, and Ernie Hudson. So don't know what's going to happen there. There's rumors that they're going to cast a younger team, mix of boys and girls, and maybe it's a legacy piece. Maybe this is their children, or there's some other connection there, but none of that is confirmed. Leslie Jones, who was one of the stars of the latest reboot, leapt out on Twitter and said, this is BS, and I can't believe they're doing this, and, who the hell do they think they are? And she's got a point. But still, to have, the legacy of somebody like Jason, who I think is an exceptional filmmaker. I'm a really big fan of his work. I just watched his movie Tully last week for the first time and really enjoyed it. I'm excited to see what a talented filmmaker like him, and somebody who obviously is going to have the ear of his father who created this, co-created this. I'm curious to see what's going to happen. What do you guys think?
I don't know. Did he do Juno? Was that him?
Yeah.
And not the Whiplash one, the roller skating one?
What was that one called?
Whiplash or something like that.
Was it Whiplash?
I don't know. So we're going to have roller skating Ghostbusters now?
Who knows? Again, he did Young Adult a few years ago, which is this black comedy with Charlize Theron and Patton Oswalt that is
that was really good. Yeah.
Oh my god, that movie is so good. And let's say I watched Tully last week and really enjoyed that one as well. And Juno's a great flick. So again, this guy's a great filmmaker. He did Thank You for Smoking. He's done a lot of great movies. So he's got his bona fides. Now he's not just Ivan Reitman's kid, but he's also Ivan Reitman's kid. So that's a sort of strengthen the legacy. I'm keen. I'm in.
Yeah, well, I guess it's an interesting. I mean, what about Sigourney Weaver? You forgot about her.
True. And well, Rick Moranis was retired, right?
Yeah. Disappointingly, yeah. So I don't know. I mean, I guess it's like Jonah Hill and the kid from the other one from that movie. Drawing a blank here, which is what we do on this show.
Oh, so from Superbad. What's his name?
Superbad, yeah. The other Canadian kid.
Canadian?
I think he's also in Juno, isn't he?
He is.
The McLovin guy?
No, the skinny guy from Arrested Development.
So McLovin could play Ramus's character, right? Egon? No?
Ramus has a daughter. Does he have a son?
No, McLovin could play.
Oh, yeah, well, yeah. Just do a whole thing.
Kid who has he ever been in another movie since then?
Okay, here's for editing purposes, here's your name. Michael Cera. That's who we're trying to
from Arrested Development.
Yes,
exactly.
Yes.
That's the kid.
Scott Pilgrim.
But my joke was about Jonah Hill, like just, do a remake, just throw Jonah Hill in there, right?
Yeah.
You missed it.
Yeah.
You missed it.
Right over my head.
So funny. Yep. Mm-hmm. Anyway, who's is the next one? Is that me, maybe?
I think the next two are you. The ones, I think Jaime and I put our names on these. I don't think you put your names on yours.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So I basically posted this one here that's saying that the short treks are finally available outside of the U.S. and Canada. In the U.S., they were available on CBS All Access. In Canada, they were available on Space TV.
And Crave.
And Crave, yes. Technically, same thing. But yeah, now they're available on the Netflix for the fans out there who haven't seen these other things. And my next piece has to do with Sarah Mitich, which we talked about last year, who played... did she play last year? Yes.
Yeah.
Last year she played Lieutenant Commander Ariam, which is the Star Wars character that... Star Wars. Star Trek character that has, the sort of like an augmented robot-y kind of body.
Yep.
Or is it a robot? I can't remember. Like an android, I mean. Mm-hmm. But she's now she's cast off her costume, and she's now playing a human woman in the show. And the character, the lady who's playing, she's now playing Lieutenant Nilsson. And I've forgotten the name of the lady that's playing. It's actually in the tweet. Who's going to cover the Lieutenant Commander Ariam character, because she was in the show and she actually had lines in this one. Hannah Cheeseman is going to play Lieutenant. Which one is it again?
She's going to play Commander Ariam.
Yeah. And she actually had some lines in the last show. I didn't really notice Sarah Mitich in the first episode, but we'll talk about that in a few minutes anyway.
Would you recognize her outside of her robotic thing? Yeah.
Yeah. She's a fellow Canadian, so just
okay. I was going to say I have no clue who this person is. I thought, maybe she comes out on Doctor Who or something.
No. She was just one of the crews that was talked about. So, and one of the actors on the show. I'm pretty sure she's Canadian. Yep. Anyway, so Jonathan, you get some follow-ups?
I do. So, interesting story this week that some of the to be fair, some of it was done here on this podcast. Some of the criticism of the appearance and demeanor of the Klingons on Star Trek Discovery Season 1 have apparently made an impact on the production. So, there's a story from Digital Spy, a British website, that Alex Kurtzman, who's one of the co-creators of the show, said that the appearance of the Klingons in the first season, which was obviously a very big departure from previous iterations of Klingons, which were very hairy and...
So these are Klingons 4.0 now, I guess, right?
Yeah, we did just keep on going. And so apparently, as a result of some of the feedback, the bald, hairless Klingons that appeared in the first season will not be brought back, and they're going to give them hair again. And apparently he said that part of it is that they're no longer at war, and therefore they can grow their hair back out. I think that's a bit of a stretch. I think they just wanted to do something new, and it didn't catch on, and they got a lot of backlash, and they've decided to redo it. But yeah, so for those of you that were uncomfortable in season 1 with not just the Klingons, but the Klingon nude lovemaking scenes at all, apparently you're going to get a more traditional looking look at the Klingons for season 2, and this is also a spoiler. Apparently we're going to see more Klingons in season 2.
Really? Wow, that's not... Yeah, so we had the original series Klingons, which were just grumpy, Western actors in, black vests, right?
Yeah.
With sort of various types of hair. And then we had the Worf, Christopher Lloyd type Klingons,
The lumpy foreheads and the big eyebrows.
Yeah, and the big long hippie hairdos, right? Yeah. And then we had the undiscovered country sort of semi-balding Klingons, right? With the less ridgy heads. Mm-hmm. So they were sort of been the head. So that's the third iteration. And I guess so. Then the fourth iteration is the ones we had last year on Discovery. So now we're going to have a fifth iteration of Klingon.
Well, it remains to be seen. Maybe they'll go back to something that looks closer to what we had gotten used to in the past. So we'll wait and see. But it's interesting that this is something that apparently they just cannot leave alone.
Yeah, well, they just like it's like a Star Wars franchise. Yeah.
They go back and digitally alter them for the DVD release.
Yeah, well, they will, of course. They just showed Laurel in the last episode, and she still didn't have hair. So even though she's been sitting with her arms in chains there, pouting against the wall. Spoilers. Anyway, all right, what's next?
Quick one. So Shazam, the movie's coming out this year. Looks like it's going to be a lot of fun. Shot here in Toronto, of course. The Shazam suit. So this story came out last week, and I just couldn't believe it. So apparently the suits that they've got fit for the film cost $1 million a piece to make. They are illuminated. They are custom molded to the actor's body. They are filled with all kinds of wiring and gadgetry and all kinds of cool stuff. They cost $1 million a piece, and they made 10 of them to film this movie. So Zach Levi is obviously playing Shazam, and he's got this sort of buff muscle suit. He's obviously gotten himself in really good shape for the film, but they've got these things that are custom made to, form fit to his body, and they've got this lightning bolt on the front that illuminates and everything. And $10 million worth of costumes for this movie. So no pressure, but that's just the one costume budget for this movie. So we know it's going to make a few bucks to break even, but it does look like a fun movie. So we'll see where it goes.
So was Shazam the character where it was a young kid who turns into Shazam by saying Shazam?
That's right. Yeah. The character's name is Captain Marvel historically in comic books. He says the name Shazam. He turns in from Billy Batson, a little boy, into the heroic hero, Captain Marvel, but
not the same Captain Marvel?
Not the same Captain Marvel. There have been multiple Captain Marvels over the years. There was lawsuits. There were problems. DC has sort of backed off over the years on using Captain Marvel because it's just not.
Is this DC versus
Marvel? Yes.
Marvel?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So which property is this, Shazam?
This is DC.
Oh, okay.
So obviously, somewhat coincidentally, these two films are coming out in close proximity to one another, but we are actually getting Captain Marvel and Shazam this year, which is kind of funny that they coincide like that, but or not. Maybe someone over in the marketing department's got a sense of humor, but we are getting what would have been Captain Marvel versus Captain Marvel this year in these two films.
Yeah, but that's typical of Hollywood. They have two volcano movies,
two Captain Marvel movies,
Earth disaster movies. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I have a feeling I know which one's going to win the box office.
I think you probably could put some good money down on the one you think it is. Yeah.
Yeah, I do think. Okay, so I haven't seen Aquaman, so maybe I'm not being fair. Aquaman might have been the first fun, like in the Marvel Cinematic Universe sense of fun type of movie. Thor Ragnarok, that sort of thing. This seems thematically closer to like a Thor Ragnarok in terms of the goofy fun times sort of movie that I expect from Shazam. Whereas Aquaman seemed fun, but kind of maybe more like Spider-Man Homecoming or something where it's fun, but a little bit more serious than Thor Ragnarok was.
Yeah, they were calling it Aqua Bro, right? It was like, the guy was being a bro. He's just like out there with his hair out going like, hey, we're in the water, far out. This seems like what you'd expect if you're going to make a movie about a kid who becomes a superhero. Have some fun with it. So again, the tone looks good so far. The trailers look good. It looks like it's going to be an enjoyable ride. And that's kind of what's been missing from some of these DC movies is they take themselves too seriously. Wonder Woman had some lighter moments. We've seen some lighter moments in Aquaman, at least in the trailers, and none of us have seen it, but hopefully they're turning the corner.
So this is big with a cape, right?
Yes, that's exactly what this is.
All right. Too bad Faust Schwartz is gone.
Yeah.
F.A.O. Schwartz. Yeah. So, Jonathan, you got one more, I think?
I got two more, but one more. Here we go. So, George Perez, one of the most revered artists in comic books in the last 40 years, has announced his retirement. Very sad news. Not entirely unexpected. He's had some health issues. He's getting older. He has some different things that are sort of preventing him from keeping the kind of routine that would be required to put out comics on a regular basis. So he's announced his retirement. Very disappointing to see his career come to an end, but what an amazing legacy this man has left us with. Crisis on Infinite Earths, we talked about before. He drew this iconic series. He drew one of the most memorable crossovers in the history of comic books. He did JLA Avengers, which was this big DC Marvel crossover series where he drew just hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of superheroes overlapping with one another. Very, very cool stuff. Of course, New Teen Titans was one of his huge landmark series. He did the Avengers for years. He did Fantastic Four. I mean, this man worked on so many books over his career and was just an absolute legend. I had the pleasure of interviewing him for my work. I had the pleasure of meeting him as a fan. He was an absolutely gracious and kind gentleman. Apparently, he's going to continue going to conventions and meeting people and getting out there, and you can get him to give you an autograph and stuff like that. Do make the time to meet this man. He's so much fun, and we're so grateful that he was there for us to share his talents with us. Really, really one of the best artists I've ever had the experience of reading.
Cool. All right. So the next piece here is I was listening this morning to a repeat of Sonequa Martin-Green of Star Trek Discovery and The Walking Dead was on CBCQ radio, CBCQ, which is a radio show I listen to occasionally, but I listen to it as a podcast. And she was being interviewed by Laurie Brown, who's I think a rock journalist at one point, talking about her role as the first black female lead in a Star Trek franchise, talking about where Star Trek is going with Discovery, Spock having a full beard, is he the hipster Spock or is he a Spock from a mirror universe? You'll have to listen to the show and find out, or watch Discovery. So it was a really good interview to sort of hear. It's like 14 minutes long. It's not much of an investment of your time to sort of hear what she has to say about her place in Star Trek and what work she did to research it and that kind of stuff. So good interview with Sonequa Martin-Green. Sonequa Martin-Green. How about Sonequa Martin-Green? All right.
It's my,
so Jonathan, you got
my favorite part of this podcast is listening for you to have to say her name.
I know. Seriously. Which I'm going to cut anyway. All right.
And our last thing, we had the Oscar nominations came out this week. Obviously, a big one for Black Panther. First superhero film, first Marvel film to be nominated for Best Picture at the Academy Awards. Got 7 nominations overall. Got original score, costume design, visual effects, best song, all kinds of stuff. Very, very cool sort of moment for people who are fans of this genre. Unfortunately, no nominations for Ryan Coogler for directing this, in spite of its nomination for Best Picture, and also none for Michael B. Jordan or for Chadwick Boseman, or even for Letitia Wright, who we all, I think, really enjoyed her performance as well. So a little bit of a letdown. It's exciting. At the same time, it almost feels a little bit like it's just being done as a courtesy. It doesn't feel like it's necessarily has the seriousness behind it that you might hope for, but still cool to see a movie that I think we all recognize was something special get a little bit of a due.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I'd be really, really shocked and surprised if it won the Best Picture. I think I will address something I saw online, because there were a lot of people sort of hurt over the fact that The Dark Knight was not nominated back whenever it came out. And I think it was quite of a different time in terms of there were only 5 Best Picture nominees back then. For the last several years, there have been 10. So it kind of makes sense that Black Panther is probably, one of those 10. I could see that. I could see arguments for it. And for folks who feel upset about The Dark Knight never having been nominated, it's I kind of think The Dark Knight was a big argument for, but an argument for why they decided to extend to 10 pictures and why a superhero movie is even nominated to begin with. I think they sort of, caused everybody to sort of reconsider what they were thinking for the Best Picture nominations.
Yeah.
That said, though, Heath Ledger's portrayal of the Joker was like over the top. Probably one of the best performances I've seen in many, many years. Right.
Well, and he won the Oscar posthumously for that, right?
Yeah. Well, best actor. Yeah, for sure.
Best supporting.
Was it best supporting?
Best supporting.
Okay. Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
All right. So here's.
Sorry, I was just gonna say the other thing is that if you go down, there was a great story on IGN the other day about the history of Oscar-nominated superhero films and science fiction films. It is pretty astonishing. Like people talk about comedy having a really tough time breaking through with the Academy. Sci-fi is just the worst ghetto of this. Like you look at some movies that were really influential, and it's always like, well, visual effects, score, costumes. Sometimes, all these movies, that they, groundbreaking technology. You think about the leaps forward we've seen from movies like Star Wars or Superman the movie, or all these different things over the years, and none of them are taken. They do get, best visual effects and a pat on the head, but it is a leap forward to see this movie getting at least a nomination.
Yeah, Star Wars was a phenomenal movie. I was talking to somebody about that today, that, in 1977, I mean, admittedly I was 17 years old and blah, 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 but as a milestone in movie production, it's up there with 2001: Space Odyssey, which again, that one is arguable, because I've come across many people who can't even make it through that movie, right? But the first part is kind of like very sort of philosophical and stuff like that, right? But I'm amazed that, like, I saw it happen. I was watching Star Wars, and then every single movie that came out, for the next 6 months to a year had motion capture models and stuff like that. It was just totally, let's go get those ILM guys to do that same thing, for us, right? Mm-hmm. And then as CGI came along too, there were many CGI movies that were like that. The Matrix is another example of a movie that had a great story and a phenomenal twist, and right in the middle, not at the end, sort of thing. Mm-hmm. So that's another. I mean, for me, the Matrix is the reason I went out and bought a DVD player, just because and then got a subwoofer just so I could hear that part where Neo realizes he is in fact the one, and the entire theater shook,
Yeah. And there's some movies that just change the game, and again, they are so influential, and they do change movie making. Again, you can say what you will about art film versus or cinema versus film, or cinema versus movies, but these movies are changing the way that other movies are made, sometimes for the better, sometimes for the worse. They're hugely influential, and it is nice to finally get a little bit of a push, although it does make you wonder, is this the new norm, or is this just Oscar paying lip service? So I guess we'll find out when the ceremony happens, if there's more than, I think if you look at the betting odds right now, there's nobody putting money down on Black Panther.
Oh, totally. Yeah, I was going to say, like the having lived through a lifetime of Academy Awards, it's just riddled with disappointment from the point of view. I mean, very rarely have I been able to pick, LA Confidential was an example, exemption. Sorry, LA Confidential was an exemption to that rule. But if you're a sci-fi fan or a comedy fan, like you said, you just don't watch the Oscars, because whoever you think is going to win isn't going to win. In fact, even the Golden Globes, I was surprised that Bohemian Rhapsody won, or that Rami Malek won for Best Actor, right?
But then that's the kind of movie that those awards people like. They like movies about people, and they like movies about movies. That's what you make to get an Oscar, right? That's how you win with the artist, and not with the Dark Knight, right?
Well, the reality is the good movies don't go in to make a movie to win an Oscar.
No, well, I mean, in an ideal world, you can do both. I mean, there are movies that are massively popular that are also, high art. It just seems like rarer and rarer those things actually converge.
Yeah, it's funny because I questioned with a few friends of mine this morning about the Black Panther movie being picked as best movie, and I got blasted back. What do you mean? What, you don't think it's the best movie? Blah blah blah. I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I haven't seen Roma, but I have a feeling. I get the impression it was a great, interesting movie, great movie, right? Mm-hmm. And Green Book. Some people were saying it would have won an Oscar 10 years ago, but we've had that story over and over again. Who are the other people that were nominated for Best Picture?
Bohemian Rhapsody, The Favorite, Black Panther, Black Klansman, which I've seen and was excellent. Green Book, Vice, A Star Is Born, and Roma.
I have to say, Vice. But I didn't realize in all the times I watched that trailer that was actually what's his name now? Batman.
Christian Bale.
Christian Bale. Yeah, I had no I had to go back and watch it again because I just thought it was some actor. You know, I was more impressed by the guy playing George W. Right? So
yeah, and they both got nominations, and McKay got a nomination for Best Director, and it got Best Picture. Like, it's got a lot of heat under it. I must admit that was one I kind of regret not going to see over the holidays as well. I do like Adam McKay's movies, and I think he's really talented, and I would have liked to have seen that one, but can't cram it all in. But BlacKkKlansman was available on demand and DVD now, and I watched that last week, and it was great. Spike Lee, long overdue for a Best Director nom.
For sure.
I finally got one. Yeah. Should have gotten one 25 years ago for Do the Right Thing. It's disgusting that he didn't, and yet finally here we are. And he
another guy who changed the way movies are made. Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's funny. I mean, I never would have thought political movies can. I've seen some really interesting ones, like the dude playing president. That was funny, or president. Yeah, he played the president, and The Candidate. I think it was the movie was called, right? And I saw Josh Brolin play W in a movie, and I don't know why I ended up watching it, probably on a plane or something like that. But that actually turned out to be a pretty good movie. I never would have thought that I would sit down and watch a movie about George W. Bush, right?
Yeah.
But it was he actually made George W. seem an interesting person when he was president. We all kind of like now we have another example of why George Bush was a decent president. Anyway,
now that we're done trashing Jaime's country,
yeah. So shall we? It's 2 weeks in a row, honey. But should we move on to the Spokies, or should we move into the main features?
Well, you want to build the suspense for the Spokies?
I don't know. Is there suspense for the Spokies?
No, let's do the Spokies. Come on.
Oh, let's do the Spokies. All right. So, yeah, I'm going to go to the Google Doc so I can actually walk us through it. So we had a fair number of responses, more than we thought we would get, more than we were getting in the first couple of days we put this thing out there. But yeah, we posted up, if you don't know, we posted a Google form for people to vote for things, and Jonathan went ahead and put his best shot for the number of movies and actors and so on and so forth, TV shows and that stuff into categories. And we also allowed people to write stuff in. I'm not sure how many people wrote in anything that kind of won, and I don't know if you wrote in something, if somebody else coming after you could see that was been added to the pile of people you could choose from. Anyway, so rolling on to the drum roll for the Spokies, second annual Spokies, that is. Woo! So for best sci-fi picture, we have a three-way tie. So we'll have to sort of decide: are we going to let it be a three-way tie, or are we going to call it? So Ready Player One got 20% of the votes. Avenger Infinity War got 20% of the votes, and Black Panther got 20% of the votes. So do we go by which one has the most Oscar nominations, or
we go by which one we voted for?
We could do that.
Do we reveal our own votes?
Oh, I don't know. I guess I could do that. I can't remember what we voted for. Who did you vote for?
I actually don't remember what I voted for.
Oh, see,
I might be changing my mind.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, that's just so. What do we think? Were we going to let it be a three-way tie? What do you think? It was Ready Player One, Avengers: Infinity War, and Black Panther. It's hard to say. Here's my opinion. Here's my spin on it. Okay, Ready Player One was a great book.
Yeah,
and it was a decent movie, but the book was again light years ahead of the movie, even though it was Spielberg and all that kind of stuff. I haven't sat down and watched it again, so that much. Yeah. I have watched Avengers: Infinity War twice now because I sat and watched it on television when I think it's on Netflix now in Canada. So, and I really enjoyed that. I think that of all the, and I may get shot down in a minute, I don't know, but of all the Marvel movies I've seen, I think this is actually the best one. Again, because I like those kind of movies. I like those kind of stories where all the characters get brought in together anyway, right? I like that about Heinlein. I like that about Asimov. So I guess I like that here. So, and Black Panther was a good movie, and it was a groundbreaking movie. I'll admit that, but I think I'd have to pick Avengers over top of Black Panther or Ready Player One. What do you guys think?
We have to do rock paper scissors for who's going to go second.
Yeah,
flip a coin.
I think I will throw in Black Panther. I'll give it a little bit more credit for the groundbreakingness. I definitely loved Avengers: Infinity War. Don't get me wrong. That's why it's in a three-way tie, because I think it was a difficult category. So I'll throw my hat in the ring for Black Panther.
Great. Well, I'm not throwing mine in for Ready Player One. So as the deciding voter, I did originally and will continue to keep my vote behind Avengers: Infinity War.
Oh, there you go.
But I will tell you, I really had to fight my recency bias because the other one that I had really tough time choosing between was Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse.
Yeah, well, I haven't seen that one. But I've heard it's an amazing movie.
It was neck and neck for me. I think on their own merits, the achievements of Black Panther and Avengers: Infinity War and that last year, they all had so much ground broken. In that, obviously, we saw, the kind of impact culturally we saw with Black Panther, and it was also just a really fucking good movie. Pardon my language. And Avengers, to get that much into one movie and to create an empathetic villain and to have all those different things overlapping and have it work the way it did is an astonishing accomplishment. To make it a good movie that stands on its own and know that it's the first part of something, it was really something else. And the kind of care and love of comics and the kind of storytelling and the kind of, again, inclusiveness and the kind of just amazing animation that we saw in Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, all three of those movies really, really impressed me last year. In my mind, it was the best year I think we've ever seen for science fiction movies, Solo not included. So it was good. As far as the best ever Marvel movie, I'm still going to have to keep my hat in the Winter Soldier camp.
Really?
I still think Winter Soldier is one of the best thrillers I've seen in years, hands down.
That's the one with Robert Redford?
Robert Redford, and yeah. That one, if you didn't put Captain America in a costume, that movie works. It is completely compelling. It's well acted. It's well paced. It's suspenseful. It's action packed. It's really, really good filmmaking. And also, it's got Captain America and Nick Fury and Black Widow and.
Right.
I still think that is that and the original, the thing that started it all, the original Iron Man movie with Robert Downey Jr. Go back and watch that one sometime. That movie holds up, and it is a really, really, really well-made movie by Jon Favreau. It is such a strong movie, and it really sets the tone for where this whole universe comes from. And when you go back and look at it and you think, like, this was like a Hail Mary. Everyone was like, Robert Downey Jr., Iron Man, like, what? They came out of nowhere, but it had all these ingredients into such a strong picture.
I'll agree. But that's not 2018.
No.
All right, let's move on. We got some limited time here.
Okay.
So best sci-fi show, not quite far and away, but the clear winner in this category is Star Trek Discovery, which is good because that's why we're here.
Yeah.
And we had a 4-way tie for second place. So we had Mr. Robot, The Good Place, Doctor Who, and Altered Carbon were tied for the second and or third place. So not much we can say about those ones, right? So, I mean, Doctor Who's Doctor Who. It's a franchise, it's an institution in England, right? Altered Carbon was, I think, probably the breakout one there. Good Place is just carrying on an amazing show for many, many years now, right?
Yep.
And Mr. Robot, same thing. It was Mr. Robot, to be honest with you, is almost getting to the point where it's a tired franchise. Like the first season was amazing, second season was and then, still great television from the point of view of sci-fi, but the first season was the greatest season of Mr. Robot for sure.
Well, and it has the exhaustion factor of, it ended with such a twist. There's such a great first season. It was really hard to keep the momentum up after that. So it is a diminishing return. And they've already said that they're going to do one more season and they're done. So they clearly know it's time to get out of the Mr. Robot business, not to mention the fact that I'm sure Rami Malek will cost a lot of money soon. So
Right. That's true. So let's move on to best new sci-fi show. This one surprised me, even though I, told you it was a good show, but Lost in Space, far and away the biggest winner in this category. 35% of the votes went to that one, and everybody else was like 14% and blah, 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 right? So far and away on that one. And then tied for second and third, Disenchanted and Sabrina, Chilling Adventures of Sabrina. So is that new Chilling? No, the Chilling Adventures.
Yeah, Chilling Adventures.
So yeah, that was an interesting one. You guys haven't seen Lost in Space? though, have you?
Nope.
No, I have not. And I think I ended up, in this category, I ended up voting for Disenchanted, if I'm not mistaken. Although I've not finished
the animated
that series.
one?
Yeah, that's the new Matt Groening Netflix series.
Okay, I haven't watched that one myself. It's queued up, but I haven't got around to watching it yet.
Yeah,
I did enjoy Sabrina, for sure.
Yeah.
That's probably who I voted for. All right, best sci-fi actor. Guess who got this one? Wow, Mr. Ryan Reynolds for Deadpool 2.
Canada's own Ryan Reynolds?
46.7% of the votes went to him.
What?
I know.
Huge.
And then the tie again for second and third place. Three-way tie this time. It was Jason Momoa for Aquaman, Chadwick Boseman for Black Panther, and guess which one Josh Brolin won for?
Well, I don't have to guess.
You don't have to guess? No, because he's only in there once?
No, yeah, we only put him in there once. We didn't nominate him for his second role because I think one of his roles was a bit better than the other.
Right. Okay. Well, yeah, so for Avengers Infinity War, although was there much acting in that? I guess there was.
I thought he actually did a pretty good job considering he was CGI'd up, but...
Yeah, so surprising. Ryan Reynolds, Deadpool 2. That seemed to... A lot of people enjoyed that portrayal, eh?
Yeah.
He's in Canada.
He's a favorite. He's a favorite, eh?
That's for sure. For sure. Best sci-fi actor. Well, this is another runaway one.
Best
with
sci-fi actress.
Sorry. Best sci-fi actress. Runaway one with Letitia Wright from Black Panther.
Yeah.
Sort of breakout. She was also in Humans. Have you guys ever seen Humans?
I think I watched one episode.
I've seen the first season. I didn't remember her being in that one.
She's in the second season, I believe. She plays a human girl who wants to be a robot. She gets to the contacts and acts really weird. And one of the main character's sons, is a schoolmate with her and can't figure out why she's acting this way and so on and so forth. And I'm not going to spoil it for where it goes, but yeah, she's so enamored with the robot help that she decides to be one or pretend to be one or role play as one or whatever you call it. Identify as one. That's probably the best way to say it these days.
Yeah.
So Black Panther, yeah, she ran away with that role, I think, right?
Yeah, she was a revelation for me. I thought she was obviously she got the best lines, but she was a really, really, really good, strong piece of that movie. So the third again, three-way tie for second and third place, and this is kind of interesting because I want to hear what you guys think about this. But Zoe Saldana for Avengers: Infinity War versus Evangeline Lilly for Ant-Man and Wasp, or Amber Heard in Aquaman. Now, have you seen Aquaman, Harvey?
I've not seen Aquaman. I've seen the other two movies.
None of us have seen that one, so we have no opinion on her.
Nope.
So what do you think about Zoe Saldana in Avengers: Infinity War versus... I guess she's sort of a central character there in that yeah,
she has a really good, nice arc. I mean, obviously it doesn't end well for her in the middle of the picture, but she has a really emotional arc with her and... Star-Lord, and then she has another one with her and Thanos. So she has some nice beats. She has some nice scenes. Particularly that sort of final bit where Thanos kidnaps her and stuff. That's strong stuff.
Yeah, cool.
And Evangeline Lilly was very kick butt, but I don't know that her performance was, for me...
Yeah, I was surprised by that.
Highly memorable.
That's what I think Letitia Wright kind of ran away with that poll. So the last one here we have is the most anticipated sci-fi movie of 2019. There is no question that the most anticipated movie is Star Wars Episode 9.
Oh, I have a question.
What's the question?
Come on, Star Wars Episode 9.
It's a democratic process here, right? So
listen,
people just want what I'm doing air quotes here, closure, right?
Can I just have a moment with our listeners? Hello, listeners. Listen, if you're not more interested in Avengers Endgame than you are in Star Wars Episode 9, you're doing it wrong. Just putting that out there.
Okay, it wasn't that far. It wasn't like far and away the number one pick. I mean, 33% of the vote went to that one, or a third of the people voting in this poll went for that. But right behind it at like a couple of votes difference between that and Avengers Endgame. So that is the second place for most anticipated movie. So that is probably, if you take out the whole Star Wars Halo effect, right, then I'm sure Avengers Infinity War would have come out on top. Am I right?
Yeah, probably. I mean, you have a very long-running, loved franchise, and you have, a much newer franchise, but also very well-loved. And I think that was probably the difference: either closure to the series, or just enough people being like, "Yeah, Star Wars, want to see that."
Yeah, it's funny how Google messes up with their colors, because I don't know if you noticed that the glass kind of looks the same color.
Well, for me, I see glass and Detective Pikachu. Can we talk? Can we address the person who voted for Detective Pikachu, please?
What?
Did somebody vote for Detective Pikachu for their most anticipated movie?
Not on this podcast, but maybe that was the Ryan Reynolds Halo effect.
Oh, well.
I mean, Canada loves him. There's no dispute, but come on.
Well, before we get on that, Captain Marvel came in third place, which makes sense because we want to find out where Captain Marvel was going to go. And so if you combine Captain Marvel and Avengers Infinity War, then they beat out Star Wars.
And we didn't even have Spider-Man in this one because it hadn't been announced that it was for sure coming this year. I think we knew that it was. Did we put it in there? I can't even remember if we put it in there.
I'll tell you in a second. But so I just want to let you know what the other two wedges are. So the wedge on the left-hand side is the New Mutants.
New Mutants, yeah.
Yeah, and then the other wedge is Godzilla, King of the Monsters, because that's apparently something people look forward to.
We know where Jaime's vote was.
The kaiju.
And then the other one is Toy Story 4.
Oh, that's a good one.
And Zombieland 2.
Oh, that's gonna be good too. Again, there's no bad votes. It's going to be a great year for films. I think this is the year of closure, right? We get the end of the Star Wars third trilogy. We get the end of Game of Thrones. We get the end of the Avengers. Two-parter. This is the year of closure.
Yeah. All right. So now's the main event. So are we going to do the spoiler?
No,
we have like half an hour, huh?
We just spoil the heck out of it. Come on.
Yeah, right. I think it's really hard to talk about it in a non-spoilery kind of way because even some of the stuff we would mention would definitely give spoilers for season 1.
So we are talking about the Orville's third episode, right?
Well, maybe we'll save a room for that at the end. Episode 3 and 4 of the Orville.
There was coincidentally in the same week a kind of a tip of the hat, as far as I can tell, from the Orville to Star Trek Discovery and from Star Trek Discovery to the Orville.
Really?
Yeah, we'll talk about those. They're very minor tips of the hat is what I felt.
Okay, because Orville was losing me there for a while. All right, let's go back so here we are, ladies and gentlemen. This is the spoiler part of the show where, hey, so why are you listening to this show if you're not interested in Star Trek Discovery? So season 2 premiered the other day, the episode called Ruffling Feathers, and was it? No, what was it called?
Brother.
Okay, right. And it had a disappointing end as far as that was concerned. But, if you're a fan. But wow, what a good show. Yeah. What do you think? Definitely one of the better episodes we've seen so far.
Yeah, I think so too. I was definitely a fan of the first season of Discovery. Totally understand why a lot of longtime Star Trek fans may not have been. Mentioned the fact that it was more Battlestar Galactica in space is sort of the tone. I don't think they moved completely away from that in this episode, but it definitely had more of a lighter feel to it, just a little bit more happy and a little bit less morose, even though there was a lot of seriousness. And I think a lot of it comes down to the change in captains from Captain Lorca and Captain Pike.
Yeah, I got to say, I really did like the original Star, or the Star, sort of the Enterprise type uniforms versus the, with the solid colors as opposed to just the stripes or whatever they use in Enterprise, in Discovery. But a really, really good, compelling story and lots of energy and action. A little bit of, suspend disbelief here and there, but yeah, very pretty show. Very, you can tell by the image I'm going to use for the cover shot that it was a really well designed show from that point of view, right? So, and I really liked Christopher Pike's character. I watched Hell on Wheels, which is where I first found out about Anson Mount, and he plays quite a different character in that show. So, it was really interesting to see him in this sort of more closer role, playing this new character, Pike. I really liked him, so that was a good thing, and the way he didn't sort of just steal it, divide and conquer and steal everything away from Saru's command, let him take the helm for a bit, and he didn't, just sort of put Michael Burnham in his place as, a typical authoritarian male character would do. So kind of left that to run its course, right? And then just a good sci-fi story. What do you think, John?
Yeah, it was definitely kind of what you wanted to see coming out of last season. Just to sort of recap, they started off with where they left off. They encountered the Enterprise, which was badly damaged. Of course, we get Anson Mount coming over as Captain Christopher Pike, who's a character we're all familiar with from the Star Trek films of the last few years, as well as from the original series. There is this great mystery that they introduce us to, the 7 red bursts that have been spread across the sky. Pike takes command of the ship, and they are off to go find out where these things are originating. So, of course, we've got this great mystery right off the hop. We've got the dynamics of Pike taking over. They end up encountering this crashed ship in this asteroid field. We get introduced to another new character in Commander Jet Reno. The engineer is Tig Notaro, of course, the comedian, an actress. And so it's really fast-paced, and there's really a lot going on. And, of course, there's the whole where's Spock, what's going on with Spock. There's the whole Michael Burnham, Spock,
he's on the Genesis planet, right?
Yeah, exactly. This whole dynamic between the Sarek and Spock, and they're doing some flashbacks. We're seeing a little bit of Spock and Michael's first interactions, which is kind of interesting sort of, backstory stuff. And then we end up with, this sort of, action-packed pod racing scene. Sorry, it was pod racing. I don't care what you say. It was pod racing.
That's true, yeah.
We end up with this pod racing scene. The, I know what I'm doing, stop talking to me like I don't know what I'm doing guy who's being dismissive to Burnham gets smoked. I mean, that was just, you could see that one coming 800 miles away, even if he didn't see it coming. And, we end again with these great mysteries. Where's Spock? What was the vision that Michael Burnham had? What are these flashes? And we get the news that Pike's staying aboard the Enterprise, or the Discovery for a while they repair the Enterprise. So, again, I think you couldn't have asked for more out of a first episode. You've got all these new elements. You've got some familiar elements that build off of what we've got. We even had Saru talking about his sister, which was something we saw in one of the short treks. So a little nod there for people who were following along. I think it was a tremendous debut. I'm all the way back in. I'm excited for the second episode and where the season's going to take us.
I did have a snappy repartee coming back, but I can't remember what it is now.
All right, Jaime, you're up for a snappy repartee.
Well, okay, so I mentioned the Orville moment. So in this case, it would be really early on in the episode when they all get into the elevator. Elevator scenes are a big source of comedy in the Orville.
Yep.
And they had one of those where they're all packed in there, and I think it's a Saurian alien crewman just sneezes all over Lieutenant Mansplain.
Yes,
and,
that's right.
And they just sort of rolled it. It felt more Orville in its execution and tone than it did, last season's Discovery. So I felt like that was a little bit of a tip of the hat, a little nod of the head.
Yeah. What I was going to say too is that the at the very beginning when the four of them are kind of deciding to go on this away mission, and one of them's wearing a red shirt, I thought, are they going to blow her away or not? But they ended up blowing away Captain Obvious there, right? So.
Wow, this guy gets no mercy this week.
Well, I think it was Connolly. I don't remember what he was a science officer. I don't remember his rank.
Lieutenant. He was a lieutenant.
Yeah,
I made a note.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, good riddance.
Lieutenant Obvious. It was really cool. And again, I think, they're building off of a good first season, and they're building off of a legacy that we're familiar with, which is, again, I think that's brilliant. You worry obviously about, all these disruptions in what we know are our timelines, the whole Michael Burnham and Spock, and we never heard about her before and everything else. But, it was cool to see the Enterprise, especially the little tweaks they made to it. It was cool to see the Enterprise and Pike, and, we're going to see Spock at some point and start getting into that area of the universe. And, they allude to, them being away on their mission when the whole war with the Klingons was breaking out, and their regret that they didn't get to be there. And, it's cool that it all sort of ties back together with where we all started from 50 plus years ago.
Yeah. And they had the comedy bits like the Tig Notaro's line about, I thought we were all going to die. And the Just Saru line when they were naming off all the people when he's trying to figure out,
Saru,
my name is blah, blah, blah. Yeah. The hello, my name is stickers on their chest, right?
Right. Which I remember was a big, I feel like that was addressing feedback, right? Where they'd gotten a lot of feedback of like, hey, this is like the first time we don't really even know who the bridge crew people are. What are their names? Sure, I could like buy a comic book or a novel and find out, but they don't even like mention their names for the most part in season 1.
All right, but we all just watched this like within the last week. Can you name everybody who was on that bridge?
No,
not even close. I can name like, Lieutenant Commander Ariam, because it was like kind of funny. They said, no ranks, and she went ahead and did it just like real people in the real world would do. too.
Yeah.
Detmer, and then besides, like Saru and Michael Burnham, I don't think I can get any more.
Yeah. Captain Pike.
Oh, okay, sure. if we go off of like who was on the bridge, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting too because like all those people on the bridge in the first season had like no lines other than gasping from time to time, right? But even the android augmented human person that I mentioned earlier, Lieutenant, I've forgotten her name already. She actually has a line or two in there as well, right? So
there's
a high five.
Good moment between the two front of the bridge officers when they're trying to help Burnham not get toasted as she's trying to rescue Pike, right? Oh, have you got me? Oh yeah, we got you.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And of course, then there was a development with the engineer guy. I've forgotten his name now. The Stamets. Yeah, he's decided he's leaving, but he can't leave until this season's over or whatever, or the mission's over. But Captain I want to say Captain Tilly, but it's not. It's Tilly. Helping solve the problem and using math and getting a high five in the show there as well.
You mean drunk with power, Tilly?
Drunk with power, Tilly. Yeah, that's right.
She's the one who can assign rooms for everybody now, and she has that authority.
I don't know, but there's one line where somebody sort of says, I think it's Pike says, "Talk less."
Talk less. Yeah. Some advice.
Fly
Talk
good
less.
to Detmer.
Yeah. Fly good. Yeah.
Fly good. Yeah. So it's a great episode. I mean,
they backed up the truck. They use this is the power of math to get the gravity simulator and just pump the brakes and back up the truck to get the asteroid into their shuttle bay.
Oh right, yes, right. Yeah.
The not quite perfect fit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No. Again, I think we're all in agreement. I think it was a really really strong premiere for season 2. I think obviously there was a lot of build up with us getting back into it with the short treks and wondering if we were going to start seeing some tie-ins, some references. We've already got our first reference to those short treks, and it's set the stage again. It's the big mystery. Do you guys have any immediate thoughts on what the big mysteries are? Where's Spock? Why did Spock? The thing they tease us with is that Spock was having nightmares about these mysterious flashes across the universe before they even appeared. Cool little
and he's drunk
teaser.
With power again.
Yeah, and has left the Enterprise, and nobody seems to know where.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't really even have the slightest. I've read some stuff online, fan theories. I don't even have the slightest clue from my own perspective as to what they could possibly be.
It was interesting how they built up in the whole episode too that you were going to meet Spock at some point in the episode. Like they kept building towards that through Sarek and Michael Burnham talking and all the flashback bits, and then you don't find it till the very last. Oh, spoilers! Last scene or two of the show that he's not even there, right? So he's taken off.
Yeah.
And even Michael Burnham's like, what?
Yeah, I think this also caught some of the reviewers off their game, where it's just a different era now with serialized television. This is one season long story, so it kind of didn't surprise me that we didn't see. Like if this was an episode of TNG, he'd be in there before the end for sure, right?
Yeah,
and it'd be wrapped up and like, hey, how's it going? And then maybe there'd be like a part 2.
Yeah,
but in this case, I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't show up for an episode or 2.
Well, and it's funny too because it is a contrast, because even though this series is being shown on Netflix worldwide, obviously CBS in the United States and Space Channel and Crave here in Canada, it's weird to have a weekly show in its own way. It does feel a little throwbacky when we're so used to. Again, last week we got every episode of The Punisher dropped at once from Netflix. We've got all these the Stranger Things and all these Marvel shows. We've got we talked about Altered Carbon. We're used to this sort of dump of information. Runaways just dropped all on Hulu in December. We're used to this sort of, it's just here and I can just sort of go. So even if it's serialized, you can just sort of go at it. This is one of those like Game of Thrones where you actually have a slow burn and we have some discussion and we have some build and we get to theorize, and I think that's kind of a nice treat in this era of instant gratification to have to sort of go. Although I will say my 15-year-old son watched the first episode with me and was like, I think a little bit put off by the fact that like you couldn't just power through and watch the next one and the next one and the next one. So
right.
Maybe that is a generational thing where we're a little more willing as men of a certain age.
That's interesting. So can we talk about the Orville?
Yeah, I've got...
Speaking of this whole serialized story thing, because, they were really starting to lose my interest in the first 2 episodes, and then, I don't know if this 3rd episode really won me, but they were setting us up with the first 2 episodes, right?
Yeah. I'm happy to talk about it. I've got some notes for for episode 3 and episode 4.
Sure. Or was it episode 4 we just watched?
Yeah, 3 was the one where Alara is on the planet. She goes back to her home planet.
Oh, okay.
That was episode 3. We hadn't talked about that one. And then episode 4 is the episode from
that they built up to
the one that they had built up to. So, episode 3, to recap, episode 3 was the one where it's called Home. Alara is losing her strength. She's the ship security officer. She's Chilean.
Should have been called the Day of the Doctor, by the way.
Yeah, really. So she's losing her strength. She has to go back to Celea. She goes back to Celea. She's having problems adjusting to the heightened gravity on her planet. She ends up basically playing through a Hitchcock movie at one point where there's, clearly something bad's going on. We have a couple of good cameos in there. Robert Picardo, who of course played the holographic Doctor on Star Trek Voyager, plays her dad. He was in last season very briefly on the view screen. And then we had John Billingsley, who plays Phlox on Star Trek Enterprise, was also a guest star in this episode. Long story short, Alara decides to stay, and Halston Sage quit the show. That's
right.
Bottom line on that is that probably one of the better characters on the show has left the show.
Yep.
They came out the next day and said, yes, she's really gone, but the door is open for her to return someday. That's why they didn't kill her off. Probably a better fate for a security officer than we saw in the first season of Star Trek.
Right, no tar pit
Next Generation. For her, yeah. No tar murder for her. Again, sad to see her go. I thought she was one of the stronger characters, and there was sort of an interesting dynamic that was there. They sort of alluded to a little bit between her and Ed Mercer, the captain, that seems a little unresolved now, although they do have a sort of farewell scene and stuff. But overall, sad to see her go. Last episode was the Nothing Left on Earth Excepting Fishes. Ed, the captain, finally hooks up with Tyler, the dark matter cartographer we got introduced to in the first episode of this season, which, as Jaime reminded us last episode, was actually supposed to be the last episode of the first season.
Oh, was it really?
Yeah. They hook up. He's happy. They decide they're going to go on a vacation. They're attacked by the Krill. Turns out that actually she is a Krill, and not only is she a Krill, she is Talea, who is the woman who they encountered in an episode last season. The Krill ship is in turn attacked by the Shaktal. The Shaktal blow up the ship, but Ed and Talea end up getting away. They go down to a planet. They have to stay on the dark side because, as we discovered last season, the sunlight kills Krill. They have a little adventure on the planet. The Shaktal try and kill them. They end up having to form a little bit of trust. They get off the planet together on a last second save by Gordon and Bordas, and then when they get back to the Orville, Ed decides to release Talea, handing her the best of Billy Joel and playing "She's Always a Woman to Me" as she is sent packing out the door. Thoughts on these 2 episodes, but specifically the last one?
Oh, thank you. I think for the Home Alara episode, it was kind of losing me for like the first 30 minutes, I think, and then there's a twist in the middle, or maybe around the 40-minute mark, that just suddenly had me compelled.
Was it a boiling twist?
The things at the boiling point, and suddenly I was like, oh man, this episode's going in a way different direction than I thought it was going to go. And the most recent episode with the Krill lady is, in my mind, at the tip of the hat. And it's not the fact that sort of the more superficial thing that you could like, oh, well, this is kind of like Choose Your Pain from last season's Star Trek Discovery. I went a little deeper and said, this character's name was Tyler.
Yeah.
So if you can invoke the Ash Tyler Voke duality,
yeah, I was going to say the same thing.
It seemed like a huge nod towards Discovery.
Or rip-off. Is that the word you're looking for? Rip-off?
I mean, the story thing, it gets at sort of like the thing we talked last time about the Orville being sort of rooted firmly in the past, being rooted firmly as homage / parody / rip-off of TNG, and Star Trek in general. I think going so far to name the character Tyler feels like they knew what they were doing on that one. That was like a signal.
Yeah, and it's funny because they did that, and it seemed so fast. Again, we talked about how they decided to shorten the first season and tack that one on to as the first episode of this season. But to have it go from like introduction of new character to like stunning twist in like a handful of episodes. She wasn't even in one of those episodes. I just did like, it was just sort of out of nowhere, and you're like, what? Who cared? What? Like, there was no build up to their romance. Like, you're supposed to feel bad for Ed that he was betrayed, but like they just started dating at the beginning of the episode, and then suddenly he's feeling betrayed, but you don't get any of that sense of it because there was no build up to it. Like, it just had no gravitas at all, this episode. Like, I didn't feel like there was any connection between the characters. I didn't feel like there was any kind of build up about, like, they hadn't even mentioned the Krill this entire season again. Like, it just felt like they were diving into the deep end when, they'd only put in a cupful of water. Like, it just didn't work for me at all.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that is the old-timey way in which the story is being told. I mean, this has the same beats as a TNG episode where, maybe there's a little bit of continuity. We're like, hey, remember this character from a different episode? We brought him back. And then the Enterprise warps in somewhere, stuff happens, and then at the end of the hour, they warp away and never to be seen again, sort of thing.
Yeah.
And I think it's a little different than the, more serialized structure, something like Discovery or Deep Space Nine, for example.
Well, it's interesting. We're going to have to look at the things like IMDb closer this time, because I went back after seeing the episode. I went back and looked at IMDb, and the actress who plays Talea is uncredited in the episode where they go and they do the Romulan, where Kirk does the Romulan thing and gets dressed up as what are these guys called? Krill,
yeah.
Yeah, so he and Mercer
yeah.
and the other guy get dressed up as Krill dudes, and they go and infiltrate, and they have this relationship with this woman and her kid and whatever, and they end up killing her brother to solve the problem of that particular episode, and that's why she's here back for vengeance, right?
Yeah.
So it's that old vengeance trick, but the fact that they like I'm saying, like, now we'll have to go back and look at the cast lists from each episode to sort of say, hey, is this person like not credited for some reason? Because they did the same thing with Tyler's character on Star Trek Discovery last year. They credited the actor with his father's name when he was the Klingon, until they revealed that he was one and the same person. Oh, spoilers for people who didn't watch last season, but it's too late. Yeah, so I don't know. That's what I was kind of wondering. Like, so I found the first two episodes very weak in terms of like, it's like it wasn't sort of what I'd become to expect from the Orville. Orville was sort of doing that same sort of thing like the original series was doing, where they were going on away missions and messing up, the Prime Directive, and then having to fix it and that kind of stuff, right? Some of those stories they did last year. The whole arc with Bortus and his issues with his partner, husband, whatever, was kind of odd, and Ed trying to find love, and and also trying to get promoted in this last one.
Oh, Gordon.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Gordon. Because that's the captain, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's hard to sort of really get invested in this at this point, right?
Yeah, I mean it can be entertaining at times, and again, it's good. It's not.
It was half an hour last year.
No, it was a full hour show.
Oh, okay.
But I think they were cramming a few more commercials in. I think they let it be known that they've added a little more show to the show this year. But I think it's coming in at I think last year it was coming in at like 45 minutes or so. Now I think it's closer to 50. So they are a little more dense. But I don't know that that's for the better.
Yeah, I don't know. I've been needing to watch the How to Live and Die in the West, or whatever it's called, the movie.
Oh, Million Ways to Die in the West. That was actually enjoyable. Yeah. It's goofier, but again, it's meant to be funny.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like that's kind of sort of where I think. So it's sort of his Blazing Saddles in a sense. In that what you mean by that, right? Like,
wow. Let's not get silly about this. Blazing Saddles is one of the funniest movies ever
Star
made.
Trek either. This is not Star Trek either, even though it's trying to be, right? It's more Lost in Space than Star Trek. But the I mean, is this really just Seth MacFarlane's? I got a lot of money. Let's make a sci-fi TV show, or what?
I think it's that he's got a lot of clout with Fox and said, "This is what I wanted." They said, "What do you want to do to keep working here?" And he said, "I want to do this." And they said, "Fine." And it has all the sort of hallmarks of a vanity project, which is fine. And there have been good vanity projects over the years. But again, I think we talked about it before. This show isn't funny enough to be funny. It's not good enough sci-fi to be good sci-fi. sci-fi. It just can't seem to make up its mind. It has some funny moments, but not enough to sort of keep you coming for the laughs. It has enough sci-fi moments that are like, oh, it's good. No, it's not actually really. It's very much derivative. So it's kind of in the middle, and yet we all still keep tuning in. So I'm not sure what that says about us and our taste.
Well, it's because our PVRs are set to it, yeah.
But it's, it just can't seem to get out of middle gear. It's not a bad show, and it's not a great show. It's a show. I think all of us see lots of moments of potential, characters and different things, and we're just waiting for it to all crystallize. But I don't think we've seen it yet. Again, I thought that second episode, as Jaime said, there was this, as you sort of think, where the episode's going, there's a bit of a twist in the middle, with, John Billingsley turning out to be turned out to be a bad guy, and go to some really dark places. We had a little Star Trek on Star Trek veteran torture scene. That went to some places where I was like, oh, that's okay. All right, I'm in, and sort of followed along and thought at the end of that episode, I was like, oh, well, this is more indicative of what we're going to see, then maybe we're onto something here. But then episode 4 felt very much, as Jaime said, it felt very derivative of old TNG. So
right. All right, well, we're running out of time, so let's move on to our watch list. Jaime, you got something here?
Yeah, it's not a watch list item per se. It's still kind of a pick. That would be a blog post on the Arduino blog on some fans who recreated the Death Star trench run scene with Lego. Apparently part of it is powered by Arduino to turn on the lights. It is how many? It is 8.79 feet long, or 2.68 meters for those of you who use that measurement system. So it's quite impressive. It has both the trench run part with the X-Wing fighter and being chased by some TIE fighters. And then on the other side, there's the cutaway of, the little Empire guys running around manning the turbo lifts. Turbo
lasers?
Thank you. Turbo lasers.
Yeah. Interesting.
That's cool. I'll check that out.
All right. I just have one. I have a couple on here. There's a few shows I'm watching right now. I'm just drawing a blank on them. But Luther, which is one of my favorite shows, has just come back. And I think this is season 5 for Luther. This is Idris Elba's. Most people know him from The Wire, but I discovered him on Luther, just stumbled across this show when it was first shown here. It's part of BBC Canada. And season 5, just like out of the blue, here we are, yay! So great series of shows. And it's another one of these ones where even though he basically is a detective who follows serial killers. So I suggest if you're going to watch this show, it's a great show to watch from season 1 and work your way through. Don't just jump into season 5 because you won't get half of the references. But every single episode is very, very compelling.
Very dark. It's a very dark series. It's kind of like BBC's Sherlock, but even darker. But so well done, so well acted. You turned me onto that one years ago, and I'm with you. That's such a great series.
For sure. All right, what do you got, John?
We've got the season finale of The Good Place is coming up this week, and so I am absolutely
season finale.
They do 13 episodes, but the first episode is actually at back to back on the first night. So this is episode 13 of this season, 39 overall. They're just finishing season 3, and so we have the finale. We had a huge sort of revelatory moment in the last episode, so we now know sort of where this is sort of headed, we think, as we head into season 4. And so I'm really curious to see what's going to happen next and how they're going to wrap things up and set us up for season 4. So this is it's very cool.
Season 4? What are you talking about? Oh, the finale. Season finale. Oh, okay.
Yes. It's not the finale. Season finale. Season finale. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Scared me there for a minute. All right. Seems like it just started up again. I don't get it.
Yeah.
13 episodes, really?
13 episodes. They did 10 before the break, and then... Oh, no, they did 9 before the break, and then they're doing 3 after.
Okay.
No, 10. 10 before the break, including the double-parter at the beginning of the season. Yeah.
Right. Okay. I think I missed the double-parter. Okay.
Yep.
And what's your next pick?
Well, the next pick isn't so much a pick as to say that I finally caught up with you and watched Black Mirror Bandersnatch. Jaime, have you had a chance to watch this yet?
Yeah, or play, I guess. I'm not even sure how to describe the experience here, because it is an interactive movie.
So we sat down as my wife and I sat down to watch it, and we watched the first sort of 15 minutes or so and played along. And then our 15-year-old son came and joined us and said, "What's this?" and started watching a little bit. And then our 13-year-old son joined us, so it turned into a family event. And assuming you guys have played through many variations, it does get very dark at times. And so it was very interesting to have a family consensus on some of the decisions we made through this thing. At one point, my 15-year-old grabbed the remote control and committed a murder, which I thought was a little unnecessary. But so it was very, very compelling. It was very interesting. We were really, really interested in where all the threads wove together, and I thought it was extremely well done. One of the most
how they made the show though.
How did I figure out how they made it?
Yeah,
well, I assume they just filmed alt after alt after alt. They just
it took me a while to figure it out, but I finally, because I kept watching and going, okay, how are they doing this? And then I realized what they were doing. Yeah. And it's funny how they have this sort of semi endings, and then you find that it's not really an ending. And
so I don't know if we want to put a spoiler warning out there for everybody if we're going to have any discussion of it. Did you guys play through and get a whole variety of endings? And
yes,
probably not every ending from what I can tell from looking online, but a good portion of them.
Yeah. What was the most satisfying ending? How did you guys feel was the best way to resolve the story?
I don't remember. It's been weeks since I watched it, but something about explaining Netflix to somebody.
Oh yeah, the Netflix one was that was good.
That path has one of the best choices of like what you are going to do. We were watching it together as well, and it's like, obviously I'm going to choose this one. Look, every time there's an option named this, I'm going to choose that option.
Really?
And I'll be honest, like they really hadn't settled down into it to watch it sort of the way you're supposed to. I watched it, got through like one or two, and it's like, interesting, experiment, but nothing great. But then for some reason we just kept trying it, and it got better with every retry. And it's like, oh, now I totally get how this works. Now I understand why people were so jazzed about this.
Well, when you first do the first few choices, it's like, what kind of breakfast cereal do you want? What kind of music do you want to listen to? What kind of album do you want to buy? It's pretty mundane, simple choices, but boy, does it go some interesting places as you go.
Yeah, I never did understand why we're pouring tea on the computer, though. That's the part that really bothered me, of course, right?
Maybe it's a British thing.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it's funny. We interviewed a gentleman on I think 2 episodes ago on Roundabout who actually had one of those computers when he was a kid, because we would have the Commodore 64 over here.
Yep.
They had those Timex Sinclair things, right?
Yep.
Z26 or 28 or something like that.
Yep.
And there's a whole bunch of them on eBay now, which is really funny too. Yeah. All right.
But yes, I think we all give a wholehearted endorsement. It's again, the first question out of both my sons' mouths were, is there more of these? So I mean, I think it worked. I think it was great.
Yeah. Is that the way TV's going to be from now on? I guess that's a big question, right?
Yeah. You've done it again, Netflix.
Yeah. Darn you, Netflix. All right. So I guess that's it for the week. We got to wrap up now. So hey, Jaime, if people want to get a hold of you on interwebs, where would they look?
I'm on Twitter as @DevWithAHair.
All right, and Jonathan, if people want to get in touch with you?
I'm on Instagram and Twitter as @JPK News.
Look at you go. All right. And, my name is Tim Mitra, so it's TIMMITRA on the Twitter machine is the best way to get a hold of me. And until next time, we'll see you in the future. Actually, next week, I guess, right? We'll see you in the future. All right, bye.
Bye.
That concludes another episode of Spockcast, streamed to you via Subspace Signal. I'm friend of the show, Greg Keogh, joining you from Sector 001. If you want to find out more about the podcast or see the episode show notes, visit the Spockcast website at spockcast.com. You can get in touch with your Star Trek nerd hosts on the website or follow them on Twitter. They're @Spockcast. If you have feedback or questions, send them a tweet with the hashtag AskSpockcast. If you like the show, please consider recommending it to a friend, writing a review on iTunes, or pledging any amount of Gold Press Platinum at patreon.com/Spockcast. You can find details on how to help them out on the website, spockcast.com/sponsor us. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you in the future. Wishing you peace and long life.